Early 20th century. The states of the Entente and the Triple Alliance are actively preparing for the upcoming war, fully understanding its inevitability. Both sides were confident of their victory, so the start of hostilities required only a pretext, which was the assassination of the Austrian Archduke Franz Ferdinand in Sarajevo on June 28, 1914. The French army, in order not to repeat the mistakes of the Franco-Prussian War, organized a powerful defense, the main strongholds of which were the fortresses of Verdun, Toul, Belfort and Epinal. To the west there was another line of fortifications of the French army in the area of Dijon, Reims and Laon. In the center of the country there was a fortified camp of Paris, which was supposed to stop the enemy's advance if he was able to break through the main lines of defense. On the territory of Belgium, which was nominally a neutral state, the main defense centers were the fortresses of Liege, Namur and Antwerp. As for the German army, it also had a powerful line of defense, which relied on the fortresses of Metz, Strasbourg, Cologne, Mainz and Koblenz, but nevertheless, the German command did not pay special attention to this line of defense, since it planned to conduct military operations on enemy territory. Before the start of hostilities, the German Empire pulled 7 armies to the western border area with a total number of 1,600,000 soldiers and up to 5,000 guns. The overall command of the German group was exercised by Emperor Wilhelm II. In turn, France pulled together 5 armies in the vicinity of the border with a total number of 1,730,000 soldiers who had 4,000 guns at their disposal. The French group of troops was commanded by General Joseph Joffre. The Belgian King Albert I also prepared for the likely offensive of the German Empire and gathered 117,000 soldiers and 312 guns under his command. Knowing full well that the main fighting would take place in Europe, the British Empire planned to support its allies by sending an expeditionary army of 87,000 soldiers to France under the command of Field Marshal John French. The British Expeditionary Force had 328 guns at its disposal. Despite the fact that the numerical advantage was on the enemy's side, the German command abandoned the defensive strategy, and, according to the tradition that had already developed by that time, planned to carry out a blitzkrieg. The Germans planned to bypass the main fortified positions of the French army through Belgian territory, envelop it from the flank, and then defeat the enemy. It should be mentioned that the Belgian government did not want to take part in the hostilities, since it was well aware that a war on Belgian territory would destroy the country's infrastructure. Therefore, immediately after the start of the war, Belgium declared its neutrality. In response to this, the German command on August 2, 1914, issued an ultimatum to Belgium demanding that the German army pass through its territory. After the Belgian government refused to comply with the ultimatum, Germany declared war on Belgium, and the German army began preparations for the invasion. On the same day, German troops invaded Luxembourg. Having learned about the invasion of German troops, the Grand Duchess Marie Adelaide gave the order to the army of Luxembourg, which consisted of only 400 soldiers, not to resist, thanks to which by the end of the day, without encountering any resistance, the German army occupied the entire territory of Luxembourg. On August 4, the German army, under the command of Generals Alexander von Kluck and Karl von Bülow, invaded Belgium. Rapidly advancing, the German army reached the outskirts of the city of Liege, which was located near the crossing of the Meuse River. In order to continue to rapidly advance, the German command needed to capture Liege, which was a well-defended fortress with powerful defensive fortifications. Despite the resistance of the local garrison, already on August 6, the German army managed to establish control over the city of Liege and blockade its forts, the garrisons of which continued to resist. Meanwhile, the French command, having received news of the German army's invasion of Belgium, also decided to act immediately. The fact is that even before the start of hostilities, the French developed a plan to capture Alsace and Lorraine, which had previously been part of France. Therefore, on August 7, the French army went on the offensive, which pursued 2 main goals. Namely, the capture of Alsace and Lorraine, forcing the German command to transfer part of its forces from Belgium to the area of the offensive of the French army. In the border battle that broke out, Luck was on the side of the French, who were able to break through the defenses of the German troops and by August 8 establish control over the city of Mulhausen. On August 12, siege artillery arrived at the location of the German army, with the help of which, by August 16, all the forts of the city of Liege fell into the hands of the Germans. Meanwhile, the French command allocated 6.5 corps, as well as 3 reserve and 3 cavalry divisions for the offensive in Lorraine towards Saarburg. On this section of the front, the French were opposed by 5 corps of the 6th German Army and 3 cavalry divisions. On the morning of August 15, the French army launched an offensive in Lorraine, and on the right flank, the French First Army launched an offensive in Alsace. Thanks to their numerical advantage at the forefront of the attack, the French quickly advanced, which allowed them to establish control over the cities of Saarburg and Château Salins on August 20. Meanwhile, in Belgium, the German First Army was rapidly advancing. Already on August 20 it managed to capture the Belgian capital, Brussels. On the same day, the Second German Army, which captured Liege, continued its offensive and reached the outskirts of the city of Namur. Leaving several divisions to besiege the fortress, the main forces of the Second German Army continued their offensive towards the Franco-Belgian border. On the same day, the German Army, having regrouped and pulled up reserves, launched a counteroffensive in Alsace and Lorraine, which turned out to be quite successful. French troops, under pressure from the army of the German Empire, were forced to retreat to the border and leave the territories they had previously occupied. Also on August 20, the First German Army, leaving its 3rd Reserve Corps to block the Belgian army in Antwerp, reached the Wolferkum line, which was located west of Brussels. Meanwhile, the Second German Army advanced towards the Franco-Belgian border, and the 3rd reached the banks of the Meuse River. The 4th German Army also advanced successfully, thanks to which it managed to reach the Bastogne-Adder line, and the 5th German Army reached the Edel-Longwy-Arzweiler line. The German command planned to continue the offensive in order to defeat France, defeating its army. According to the plans of the German command, the 1st, 2nd and 3rd armies were supposed to maneuver and go behind the rear of the Anglo-French army, and then defeat it. At the same time, the 4th and 5th German armies were supposed to contain the enemy forces and go on the offensive only if such an opportunity arose. On August 21, the battle began along the entire front. In the Ardennes region, fierce fighting ensued between the 3rd and 4th French armies on one side and the 4th and 5th German armies on the other. In the area between the Sambre and Meuse rivers in the vicinity of the city of Charleroi, the 5th French army confronted the 2nd and 3rd German armies. Meanwhile, the 1st German army was advancing towards the city of Mons, towards which the British army was moving from the Maubeuge area. Fierce fighting also resumed in Alsace and Lorraine. By August 23, the 5th French army could not withstand the onslaught of the advancing 2nd and 3rd German armies and was forced to begin a retreat. On the same day, the 1st German army managed to establish control over the city of Mons and enter into battle with the British army, which had reached its environs. In the Ardennes region, the situation also turned out to be in favor of the German Empire. The 4th and 5th German armies managed to defeat the 3rd French army and inflict heavy losses on the 4th French army, which began to retreat to the Montmedy line. The British army was also defeated by the 1st German army and retreated to the Cambrai-Le Cateau line on August 25. Also on this day, the German army managed to establish control over the fortress of Namur, thereby securing its supply routes. The German army continued its offensive, pushing back the enemy, who resisted fiercely, but the situation was in favor of the Germans, who managed to win convincing victories at Le Cateau on August 26 and Saint-Quentin on August 30, continuing the attack on Paris. Rapidly advancing on September 5, the German army managed to reach the Marne River, on the banks of which the Anglo-French army hastily strengthened its positions. By that time, the balance of power had changed significantly. Thanks to the fact that the French completed the formation of the 6th and 9th armies, the size of the Anglo-French group reached 2 million soldiers. At the same time, the size of the German army, on the contrary, decreased. The fact is that due to the offensive of the Russian army in East Prussia, there was a threat of complete loss of this region. In the current situation, the German Empire had to urgently transfer 2 corps to East Prussia. Since it was impossible to predict the outcome of the battle for East Prussia, the German command was forced to send reinforcements not only to the Western Front, as originally planned, but also to the Eastern Front. Meanwhile, having gained overwhelming numerical superiority over the enemy, the Anglo-French army launched a counteroffensive. Already on September 5th, fierce fighting began in the area of the Irk River. On September 6th, the 6th French Army intensified its attack on the flank of the 1st German Army, whose command had to transfer part of its forces from the banks of the Marne to prevent the enemy from breaking through. As a result of this maneuver, a gap was formed between units of the 1st and 2nd German armies, into which the 5th French and British armies wedged. The fact that it was at this time that the first case of using road transport to transport soldiers was recorded deserves special mention. On September 7th, using 600 taxi cars, reinforcements from Paris were delivered to the front line. Despite their efforts, the Germans were unable to stop the enemy's breakthrough, which created the threat of encirclement of the 2nd German Army. In this situation, on September 10th, the German command ordered the troops to begin a retreat to the Aisne River, which was completed on September 12th. In turn, the Anglo-French army, trying to build on its success, pursued the enemy, but on September 16th its counteroffensive floundered. Thus, a continuous positional front was formed from the Oise River to the Swiss border. The main enemy forces were concentrated precisely in this area, and in the section from the Oise River to the Northern Sea, enemy formations were small in number. It was this that the command of both the German and Anglo-French armies decided to take advantage of in order to cover the enemy's positions from the flank and thereby achieve victory. The so-called race to the sea began, which did not bring success to either side. Despite the attempts made, the opponents were unable to complete the flanking and achieve victory. Thus, by the end of the year, a positional front also formed in the area from the Oise River to the North Sea. By November 15th, the maneuver period of the war on the Western Front ended and both sides began building fortifications. The fact is that the numerical advantage of the Anglo-French army did not allow the German army to hope for the success of a large-scale offensive, and the stubborn resistance of the German troops did not allow the Allies to use their numerical advantage to return lost territories. In December, a Christmas truce began on the Western Front, which the warring sides used to strengthen their positions and prepare new military plans. Despite the fact that in 1914 the German army acted quite successfully, Germany failed to implement its plan to quickly defeat France, and the fighting on the Western Front acquired a positional character. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click on the bell so you don't miss new videos.